Officer Bridger Calloway never expected his Tuesday morning to spiral into the most emotionally charged day of his career. The 32-year-old K-9 officer had just completed a routine patrol with his partner, Atlas, a 4-year-old Labrador trained in search and rescue. But their bond was about to be tested in ways neither could have imagined. What started as a standard shift at Maplewood Police Station turned into a desperate race against time when Atlas suddenly refused to enter the patrol car. Instead, the highly trained dog bolted toward the forest behind the station, barking with an urgency Bridger had never witnessed. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't training. Atlas had detected something catastrophic. Meanwhile, across town, a dark secret was unraveling. Delaney Frost, a 28-year-old woman struggling with addiction, had made a choice 3 days earlier that haunted every waking moment. Desperate and terrified, she had abandoned 5 newborn puppies in the woods, convinced she couldn't care for them. But what she didn't know was that one puppy had escaped the box, crawling nearly 2 miles through brambles and streams, searching for help. That puppy's journey led him directly to Atlas. And what the officers discovered when they followed the dogs would expose a tragedy that shook the entire community, forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about compassion, redemption, and second chances. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe. Atlas planted his paws firmly on the concrete, refusing to move toward the patrol car. His ears were pinned forward, his body rigid, every muscle locked in place like he'd been hit with an invisible force. Bridger Calloway tugged gently on the leash, confused. This wasn't like Atlas. The Labrador never disobeyed commands, never hesitated. "Come on, boy. Let's go home." Atlas didn't budge. Instead, he turned his head sharply toward the tree-line behind the station, a low whine vibrating deep in his throat. The sound sent chills racing down Bridger's spine. In 4 years of partnership, he'd learned to read Atlas's signals like a language. And right now, every instinct screamed danger. Then Atlas barked. Not the playful bark of a dog wanting attention. This was sharp, urgent, commanding. He pulled against the leash so hard Bridger stumbled forward. "Whoa! Easy, what's wrong?" Atlas barked again, louder this time, his eyes never leaving the forest. Other officers in the parking lot turned to watch, hands instinctively moving toward their radios. Something had spooked the department's best K-9, and nobody knew why. Bridger knelt down, gripping Atlas's collar. "Talk to me, partner. What do you smell?" Atlas yanked free from Bridger's grip and sprinted toward the woods. Bridger's heart jumped into his throat as he chased after his partner, boots pounding against pavement, then crunching into dirt and leaves. The Labrador disappeared into the thick undergrowth, his barks echoing through the trees like alarm bells. "Atlas! Hail!" But Atlas didn't stop. Bridger crashed through branches, his uniform snagging on thorns as he fought to keep his partner in sight. 30 yards in, he spotted Atlas standing perfectly still beside a massive oak tree, staring down at something on the ground. Bridger slowed his approach, breathing hard. "What is it, boy?" Then he saw it. A small, trembling shape curled against the tree roots. A puppy. Its fur was matted with mud and blood, its ribs visible through paper-thin skin. The tiny creature lifted its head weakly, eyes glazed with exhaustion, and let out the faintest whimper. Bridger's chest tightened. "Oh my God!" Atlas lowered his head gently, sniffing the puppy with careful precision. The little one tried to stand but collapsed immediately, legs too weak to support its weight. Bridger dropped to his knees, his hands hovering over the fragile body, afraid to touch it, afraid it might shatter. "Where did you come from, little guy?" The puppy's breathing was shallow, erratic. Its paws were torn and bleeding, as if it had traveled miles over rough terrain. But that didn't make sense. They were in the middle of a forest, miles from any residential area. How had this puppy gotten here? And why was it alone? Atlas suddenly turned away from the puppy and stared deeper into the woods. His hackles rose. A growl rumbled low in his chest, a warning Bridger knew all too well. There's more, isn't there? Atlas took off again, this time moving with deadly focus. Bridger scooped the trembling puppy into his jacket, cradling it against his chest, and followed. The deeper they went, the darker the forest became, sunlight barely penetrating the thick canopy overhead. Bridger's radio crackled. "Calloway? What's your location?" "East Woods, pursuing K9 alert. Something's out here. Need backup." Bridger hesitated, watching Atlas pause at a fallen log, his entire body vibrating with tension. "Yeah, send 2 units. And call animal control." Atlas jumped over the log and froze. Bridger caught up and stopped dead in his tracks. What he saw made his blood run cold. For more puppies, smaller than the first, lay scattered across a torn cardboard box. None of them were moving. Bridger's hands shook as he knelt beside the motionless puppies. The puppy in his jacket whimpered softly, as if crying for its siblings. Atlas circled the scene, sniffing each tiny body with heartbreaking gentleness. Bridger reached out carefully, pressing 2 fingers against the first puppy's chest. The faint heartbeat, barely there, but present. "They're alive," he breathed. He moved to the second puppy. Same result. Weak but fighting. The third puppy twitched when he touched it, a tiny paw jerking reflexively. But the fourth puppy, the smallest one, lay completely still. His fur was soaked, its body cold. Bridger felt panic clawing at his chest. "Come on, stay with me." He scooped the smallest puppy into his palm, rubbing its chest gently, trying to stimulate warmth. Atlas pressed his nose against Bridger's arm, whining anxiously. The puppy in Bridger's jacket wriggled, trying to reach its sibling. "I know, buddy. I know." Footsteps crashed through the underbrush behind him. 2 officers burst into the clearing, flashlights sweeping across the scene. Officer Ramsey, a veteran with 20 years on the force, stopped short when he saw the puppies. "Who would do this?" "I don't know," Bridger said through clenched teeth. "But we need to get them out of here. Now." Ramsey pulled off his jacket, laying it on the ground. "Put them here, carefully." Bridger transferred each puppy onto the makeshift bed, his movements slow and precise. The smallest one still hadn't moved. Ramsey knelt beside him, producing a small emergency blanket from his belt. He wrapped it around the cold puppy, creating a cocoon of warmth. "Come on, little fighter. Don't give up." Officer Chun, the second responder, was already on his radio. "Dispatch, we need emergency veterinary services at our location. Multiple puppies in critical condition. Possible abandonment case." The radio crackled back. "Copy that. Vet's been notified. ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes felt like an eternity. Bridger watched the puppy's shallow breathing, each tiny chest rising and falling with agonizing slowness. The puppy he'd rescued first nuzzled against his hand, its warmth the only reassuring thing in this nightmare. Atlas suddenly perked up, his ears swiveling toward the north. He took 3 steps forward, then looked back at Bridger expectantly. "What now?" Ramsey asked. Bridger stood, his jaw tight. "He's not done. There's something else." Atlas moved quickly this time, weaving through trees with purpose. The officers followed, Ramsey carefully carrying the jacket with the 4 weakest puppies. They emerged into a small clearing where an old camping tent sagged against the wind. The entrance flap hung open, revealing scattered belongings inside. Someone had been living here recently. Bridger approached cautiously, hand on his weapon. "Police! Anyone inside?" Silence. He pulled back the flap. The tent was empty, but evidence of recent occupation was everywhere. A sleeping bag, still warm. Empty food containers. And on the ground, a torn photograph. Bridger picked it up carefully. It showed a young woman with dark circles under her eyes, holding a dog that looked remarkably like the puppies they'd just found. "This is her," Bridger whispered. "The mother dog. Chun pointed to the corner of the tent. Look, a handwritten note, crumpled and stained with tears, lay beside a pair of worn sneakers. Bridger unfolded it, his eyes scanning the shaky handwriting. I can't do this anymore. Please forgive me. Someone will find them. They have to. I can't watch them die like their mother did. Bridger's throat constricted. This wasn't malicious abandonment. This was desperation. Someone had been living out here, trying to care for these puppies after their mother died, and had finally broken under the weight of it all. Whoever wrote this, Ramsay said quietly, they're in just as much trouble as these puppies. Atlas barked sharply, drawing their attention to a trail of footprints leading away from the tent. Fresh footprints, less than an hour old. She's still out here, Bridger realized, and she's running. The footprints led deeper into the forest, becoming more erratic with each step. Whoever had fled the tent was stumbling, falling, desperate to get away. Bridger's mind raced. If this person had been living rough, trying to care for dying puppies alone, they were probably in terrible shape themselves. We need to find her before she hurts herself, Bridger said. Atlas was already tracking, nose to the ground, moving with the trained precision of a search and rescue dog. The trail wound through dense brush, over a rocky stream, then up a steep embankment. Bridger's radio crackled. Calloway, vets arrived at your original location. What's your status? Still tracking. Keep those puppies alive. We're pursuing a potential victim. Copy that. The forest opened into a small ravine. Atlas stopped at the edge, looking down into the shallow gully. At the bottom, a woman sat with her back against a boulder, knees pulled to her chest, shoulders shaking with sobs. Her clothes were torn, her hair matted. She looked up when she heard them approaching, and terror flooded her eyes. Stay back. Bridger raised his hands slowly. We're not here to hurt you. My name is Officer Calloway. What's your name? The woman scrambled backward, pressing herself against the rock. You can't take me. I didn't mean to. I tried. I tried so hard. I know you did, Bridger said gently, climbing down into the ravine. We found the puppies. They're getting help right now. Her face crumpled. Are they alive? Yes, because of you. You wrote that note hoping someone would find them. And we did. I couldn't do it anymore, she sobbed. Their mother died, and I didn't know what to do. I tried feeding them, keeping them warm, but they kept getting weaker. I thought if I left them somewhere, someone would find them faster than if I stayed. Bridger crouched a few feet away, keeping his voice calm. What's your name? Delaney. Delaney Frost. Delaney, when's the last time you ate? She stared at him blankly, as if the question didn't make sense. I don't remember. Ramsay appeared at the top of the ravine, holding a water bottle and an energy bar. He tossed them down carefully. Bridger caught them and offered them to Delaney. She hesitated, then grabbed the water, drinking so fast she choked. Easy. Slow down. Atlas descended the slope carefully, approaching Delaney with gentle curiosity. She flinched, sniffed her hand, then froze when he licked her fingers. Tears streamed down her face. He found them, didn't he? Your dog found them. He did, Bridger confirmed, because one of the puppies made it to the station. He crawled almost 2 miles, Delaney. He was looking for help. He was looking for you. Delaney's face shattered. The little brown one? With the white paws? Yeah. Oh God. Oh God. Is he okay? He's with the vet right now. They all are. Delaney buried her face in her hands, sobbing so hard her entire body convulsed. Bridger sat down beside her, not touching, just present. Atlas lay down at her feet, resting his head on her knee. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. You saved them, Delaney. By leaving that note, by putting them where someone could find them, you saved their lives. I should have done it sooner. Maybe, but you did it when you could. and that matters. Ramsey's radio crackled. Update from the vet. For puppies stable. One critical but responding to treatment. The first puppy you brought in is alert and showing strong vitals. Bridger looked at Delaney. You hear that? They're fighting. Because you gave them a chance. Delaney's hands trembled as she wiped her eyes. What happens to me now? First, we get you medical attention. Then we figure out the rest. I'm going to jail, aren't I? Bridger paused. I don't know. But I do know you're a victim too. And we're going to help you. Atlas stood, tail wagging slowly, and nuzzled Delaney's hand. She stroked his head, fresh tears falling. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't alone. And neither were the puppies. The veterinary clinic smelled like antiseptic and hope. Bridger stood outside the observation room, watching through the glass as the 5 puppies lay in heated incubators, for lines attached to their tiny legs. The smallest one, the one that had been unresponsive in the woods, was breathing steadily now, its chest rising and falling with newfound strength. Dr. Yolanda Price emerged from the treatment room, pulling off her gloves. Her expression was cautiously optimistic. They're stable. All 5 of them. Bridger exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. How bad was it? Severe malnutrition, dehydration, hypothermia. The little brown one with white paws, the one that made it to your station, had torn paw pads and was in early stages of shock. If you'd found them even 2 hours later, we'd be having a different conversation. Will they recover fully? Dr. Price nodded. With proper care, yes. They'll need weeks of monitoring, but they're fighters. Especially that brown one. He's a survivor. Bridger looked through the glass at the puppy in question. Even in the incubator, he kept trying to move toward his siblings, whimpering softly until a technician repositioned him closer. He never gave up, Bridger said quietly. Even when he should have. Dr. Price followed his gaze. Animals have an incredible will to live, sometimes stronger than humans. Behind them, the clinic door opened. Ramsey entered with Delaney, who looked smaller somehow, wrapped in a blanket provided by the hospital. She'd been checked by paramedics, given fluids, and cleared physically. But emotionally, she was shattered. When Delaney saw the puppies through the glass, her knees buckled. Ramsey caught her, helping her into a chair. They're okay, she whispered. They're really okay. Dr. Price approached gently. You're Delaney? Delaney nodded, unable to tear her eyes away from the incubators. I need to ask you some questions about their mother. Delaney's voice was hollow. She died 4 days ago, hit by a car near the highway. I tried to save her, but she was already gone. The puppies were only 5 days old. I didn't know what to do. Why didn't you bring them to a shelter? I don't have a car. I don't have a phone. I've been living in that tent for 3 months. I thought I could keep them alive until they were old enough to find homes, but they got weaker every day. Dr. Price's expression softened. You did what you could with what you had. It wasn't enough, but it was something. And sometimes, something is all it takes. Bridger knelt beside Delaney's chair. The brown puppy, the one that found us. What did you call him? Delaney's lips trembled into the faintest smile. Scout, because he was always crawling away, exploring. Scout saved his siblings. You know that, right? How? By being brave enough to leave. By trusting that help existed somewhere out there. Delaney pressed her hands to her face. I wanted to keep them. I wanted to give them the life their mother would have. Maybe you still can, Dr. Price said. Once you're stable. Once you have support. Delaney looked up sharply. What? Bridger exchanged a glance with Ramsey, who nodded slightly. We've been talking with social services. There's a program that helps people get back on their feet. Housing, job training, mental health support. It's not easy, but it's possible. I can't afford that. It's subsidized. And one of the conditions is showing you're committed to change. Taking care of 5 puppies? That's commitment. Delaney stared at him, disbelief and hope warring on her face. You're serious? I am. But there are rules. Counseling, regular check-ins, proving you can maintain stability. Can you do that? Delaney looked back at the puppies, watching Scout try to climb over his sibling to get closer to the warmth lamp. For them, I'd do anything. 3 months later, Bridger returned to the veterinary clinic for the final checkup. The puppies had grown substantially, their once fragile bodies now sturdy and energetic. Scout, true to his name, was the first to spot Bridger through the observation window, his tail wagging so hard his entire back end wiggled. Dr. Price smiled as she opened the door to the puppy room. They've been waiting for you. The 5 puppies tumbled over each other, rushing toward Bridger with joyful barks and playful nips. He knelt down, letting them climb all over him, their sharp little teeth tugging at his uniform sleeves. Scout planted his paws on Bridger's chest, licking his face with enthusiasm. Hey, buddy, look at you, all grown up. Dr. Price handed him a clipboard. Final health reports. All 5 passed with flying colors. They're ready for adoption. What about Delaney? She completed the program. She's been working at a pet supply store, living in subsidized housing, attending therapy twice a week. And she passed the home inspection yesterday. Bridger's chest swelled with pride. She's taking them? All 5. She said she made a promise. The clinic door opened, and Delaney walked in. She looked different now, healthier, stronger. Her hair was clean and pulled back, her clothes new. But most striking was the light in her eyes, something that had been missing in that ravine 3 months ago. When the puppies saw her, they went wild. Scout led the charge, nearly tripping over his own paws in his eagerness to reach her. Delaney dropped to her knees, laughing and crying as they swarmed her with affection. I missed you, she whispered, burying her face in Scout's fur. I missed you so much. Bridger stood back, watching the reunion. Atlas sat beside him, tail wagging approvingly. You did good, partner, Bridger murmured, scratching behind Atlas's ears. Delaney looked up, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you for giving me this chance. You gave yourself this chance, Bridger said. We just helped you see it was possible. She stood, cradling Scout in her arms. I'm going to do right by them. I promise. I know you will. As Delaney loaded the puppies into carriers, preparing to take them to their new home, Bridger felt a weight lift from his shoulders. This case had started with desperation and fear, but it ended with hope and redemption. Atlas nudged his hand, and Bridger looked down at his partner. Ready to go back to work? Atlas barked once, tail wagging. Yeah, me too. They walked out of the clinic together, leaving behind 5 puppies who had survived against impossible odds and 1 woman who had found her way back from the edge. The whole town had heard the story by now, how a stray puppy had led officers to a rescue that saved not just animal lives, but a human one too. And in the weeks that followed, when Bridger patrolled the streets with Atlas, he thought about Scout's journey, about the courage it took to leave safety and search for help, about the trust required to believe that help existed at all. Sometimes heroes wore badges, sometimes they wore fur, and sometimes they were just people trying their best with what little they had, hoping it would be enough. On this day, it was more than enough. It was everything.